So today we have a particularly special guest, no other than our own Malcolm Johnston. So for those of you who don't know, Malcolm joined RS Aqua in January 2021 as our sales manager at Mr. ROV, and he single-handedly holds down our Scottish offices up in Aberdeen.
Welcome, Malcolm. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, the sun's shining and it puts a smile on everybody's faces. So yeah, great.
Fantastic. Have you enjoyed yourself this week down in Portsmouth?
Yeah, I love Portsmouth, and every time I come down here, it's great fun, and also very hard work. But that's what it's all about.
Yeah, so we're certainly working hard. On Wednesday, we had our summer outing out on the yachts. We were all having a go sailing, and things got quite competitive because we had the two yachts together. But no, excellent fun.
Yeah, we'll just jump straight in. So, Malcolm, I mean, we know who you are and what you do, but for the purpose of the audience, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I was employed by RS Aqua, and I was employed as a senior sales manager for maritime side of the industry, with the objective of developing or one of the objectives was to develop the robotics and autonomy side of the business, where RS Aqua see this as being a great potential for moving forward and expanding their business.
Excellent. So in terms of the robotics and side of things, obviously we know you have a lot of experience in this sector. How did you get into the industry in that respect?
Well, actually, my first venture into my career, I started off as a trainee life support technician offshore in the diving industry. I'd always dreamed of wanting to work offshore as a boy. And going to work in a helicopter. Also selling ROVs with Forum, that was a very important part of my career, gaining my degree in electrical and electronic engineering as a mature student. That was also certainly one of a few of the highlights of my career.
Excellent.
Cool, yeah. So what would you say the most pinpoint pivotal moment of your career actually was? If you could pin it down to one thing.
Well, I think probably gaining my degree actually as a mature student. That was a tremendous achievement for me, and I started out doing a bit of electronics and electrical bits and pieces as a hobby. And I never thought that I could actually get any distance at all in academia, but so I started off doing a diploma in electronic engineering part-time, and all of a sudden I realised that the maths wasn't so much of a challenge as I thought. 3 years later I was doing fourth year engineering maths at university and absolutely revelling in it. And I just loved my time at university. It was quite nice as well, the fact that I was sitting as a mature student with three others and managing to keep up with the younger bucks in the university. That was a proud moment in my life when I graduated. It was really great.
Which uni was that at?
Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen. Fantastic time we had, and also just learning about learning about everything and being the academia was just fantastic. But we have to move on. We can't be a student all our lives.
Yeah, I wish we could.
Some do try.
Yeah, exactly. So I moved out from gaining my degree and graduating. I moved into the oil industry, and. Well, that was about 25 years ago now, so you're probably trying to work out my age, but I'm sure you've already done that. I've been in the industry quite a long time, so yeah.
And obviously, having been stationed up in Scotland for your studies and your work, and now obviously you're permanently our affiliate member up at, well, not affiliate, but our satellite office up in Scotland. What's it like being up there, just yourself? Do you feel sometimes that you want to be down here, or is it? Are you enjoying being up there?
I would be lying if I said I didn't feel isolated from time to time. But since starting, communication is a great thing, And Teams is a second best. I could never substitute Teams or Zoom or whatever as an ideal substitute for meeting face to face, particularly because I've been in the sales business for a long time now, and I think face to face is very important when you're speaking to customers. But you guys have been all very, very supportive to me. You're a great bunch of guys, and I think it's actually working quite well with me up in Scotland. I think my position up there is very important because quite a lot of robotics and autonomy takes place in the oil and gas industry. I've been in the oil and gas industry now for almost 35 years, and I've got a lot of contacts. And it's important that I've got easier access to these customers than I would have down here. And I think it's also important that I can be a linchpin to being an ideal link between what's happening down here with you guys and involvement in that side of the industry up in Aberdeen. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's quite good as well. I mean, I've got a bit of an autonomy up there where I can run my own business when you guys aren't on the phone and saying, "Have you done this? Have you done that?" You know, but. That's good. It's good.
From your castle up there.
Yes. Well, I live at the back of a castle. I don't actually live in a castle. I wouldn't like anybody watching this podcast to think that RS Aqua were paying me far too much money because it's...
Well, no, you raise very valid points. The conversations that we have on a day-to-day basis, it's great that a lot of our contacts are up in Scotland, as you say, so it's great that you're able to, instead of picking up the phone or email, it's great you're able to go and see these people in person, and it's great that it's able to happen more now that with the country opening up a lot more following the last year or had. I won't say the C buzzword, but no, it's excellent.
Yeah, and I think as well important when you're working with remote locations, whether it's Aberdeen or whatever, and you're not tied in directly with the head office. We have our daily sales get-togethers in a very, very informal session every day, and over Teams, and it actually works very well. And I think it's important that we all work together, and by having these daily meetings on a very informal basis through Teams, you know, we keep very much in touch with what's going on in each other's little worlds. So, yeah.
I also think there's since the year and the sort of move towards the technology that we've been doing, although there's a lot of value in seeing somebody face to face, there's a lot more customers or people and salespeople that are much more accessible than what they were a year ago. So people in New Zealand, people in Australia, people in India that we can talk to and see face to face that we wouldn't normally have been able to have those conversations with.
Definitely.
So there's definitely advantages to both sides, and a hybrid life, I think, is the way to go.
One of the key things, certainly one of our partners we work with is a company called Subsidy Imaging. For those that don't know, we're who are partnered out of Newfoundland, the manufacturers of cameras, lasers, lights for imaging and drop toe applications to come soon. And we've been able to facilitate demonstrations over Microsoft Teams or Zoom that we certainly 2 years ago would never have been able to happen. You would have had to go to Newfoundland to go and have a look at them potentially, or go to a show that's happening and wait for that time to have a demonstration of the equipment, whereas now we can facilitate, obviously, folks that want to see this technology straight onto Teams, and there you go, there's the equipment straight there.
Although a trip to Newfoundland wouldn't go amiss, that'd be quite nice.
No, I think that's important. We are actually working very well together. It almost pulls us together a bit closer, I think, as a team in the department, where we can join in and do a joint demonstration 700 miles apart to a particular customer, and I think that's good. And I think some of it may be a daunting experience for some people because they're so used to doing a Teams presentation that if they go back to face across the table, it requires a slightly different approach. But the principles are still the same, but it may be a bit daunting until people get more back into that. So I'm really looking forward to, as we move out of COVID, to be able to get back to normal and go and speak to customers, which is something that I absolutely love doing. So, yeah.
So, as you say, you've been in the industry for a long time. What would you say is, in the most recent years, the most important development in the marine equipment or research that you've seen and taken away from?
I think what's exciting for me is the development of robotics and autonomy in marine science. And I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to combine both of these two areas as part of my job. And I think marine robotics and autonomy is going places, and it links in well with my 10-15 years in the ROV industry. And it's quite an exciting prospect as we move forward to be in a position where I can develop the marine and robotics side of the industry, which complements marine science. I think there's huge opportunities to help the environment. I know that sounds a bit cliched, but it's quite true. And I'm actually passionate about the environment, it's a tremendously exciting area, which I'm looking forward to progressing as we move forward and start building our client base with these things in mind.
Mm-hmm. And bearing that in mind, where do you see the most important development in marine science technology sector in the next few years to come?
I think that getting back to this robotics and autonomy side of the business, I think that's where there's a greater fusion between that and marine sciences. It's growing. The scientific community are beginning to realise the value of particularly small ROVs and also AUVs, SUVs as a platform for mounting various sensors for monitoring the oceans of the world. I think that's a really exciting area, whether it's AUVs, SUVs, or whatever. And I see things heading as the scientists get more aware of technology itself. We'll move forward in an area where this will see a big impact on the science community. And I think we've got a part to play in this, I say with the greatest of respect, educating our scientists in these matters. There are one or two scientists which I've come across in 6 months who are very knowledgeable, and I think there are quite a lot, still a lot of ground to cover, which we can all get involved in. And that's quite nice for me, because I'm actually predominantly oil and gas. Mm-hmm. And having the opportunity to move into another environment that I feel passionate about is absolutely fantastic. So I do consider myself very, very lucky in coming and working for RSA, that we can move forward in that area together with you guys as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I think there's so much benefit in the fact that we've come from very slightly different backgrounds, and the sort of value that brings to our business and what we can provide as solutions for other people, but also the autonomous equipment and the way that is going to help explore areas of the ocean that we haven't explored before, and also adding valuable data to already pre-existing baseline data, and the way that we can reflect on that going forward will make such a difference to the environment. And
although I'm the first person to go and get out in the field and collect data, because ultimately as scientists that's fun. That's the fun bit. That's the fun bit, but obviously there is so much benefit to be had from an economic and primarily environmental side by using autonomy and robotics to get access into the field. You don't have to spend so much money on vessels, time for the crew, money for the crew, etc. You've got so much more data to your wheelhouse, and you're seeing all these benefits. Yeah,
and I think as well, we've had the foresight at RS Aqua to realise the opportunities in a commercial sense for the company, but also in an environmental sense, by growing partnerships with one or two, or I should say, put it another way, not so much one or two, but we are looking and we are working strongly with developing partnerships with some incredible companies who have got some fantastic pieces of kit in terms of AUVs, SUVs, which we're building relationships with, and putting ourselves in a strong position to represent these companies and sell across not just the marine science community, but also the oil and gas community as well. So it's great. It's an exciting time for RSA.
I think there's a lot of value in really strengthening that sort of link between academia and industry.
Yes.
And as soon as that happens, you'll get more and more research going through, and that's where...
Definitely.
It's a win-win situation all round, to be quite honest.
Absolutely.
And I certainly find it very, very refreshing dealing with... dealing's probably the wrong word. working with the marine science, environmental business, as opposed to my existing work and my experience in oil and gas. The selling features are still the same, but the techniques are maybe slightly different.
So, what is a similar question to what we've already asked? What is a really novel sort of application for a piece of equipment you've seen, whether it's an ROV in the aquaculture industry, or what do you think is a real benefit to an ROV? Or...
Well, I think reducing the carbon footprint is very important, and by if you're using an ROV to or any kind of platform, unmanned platform, you're reducing the carbon footprint in terms of the diving is a very dangerous occupation, and it's very, very expensive. And both the I think the marine science business and oil and gas, certainly in the wind industry, they've realised the importance in the wind industry of reducing carbon footprint, saving money, and also using autonomous platforms rather than divers as being a much safer way of doing things, and also cheaper. So I think there's tremendous opportunities to move forward in that area.
Excellent. So, slightly different tack of question, but kind of still related. Obviously, being in the ocean and aquatic technology sector, we have a close and important connection with the marine environment and obviously freshwater environment to an extent as well. What do you see as one of the or the greatest threat to the oceanic environment, and what do you think is one area that as a whole we really need to improve on as a society to help preserve the oceans as best we can?
Yeah, my opinion's formed in the fact that I'm an engineer, not a scientist. So, with the greatest of respect to you guys, my approach probably is slightly more technical. But I would judge carbon emissions and the effect it has on climate change and global warming to be one of the most important factors that we should be looking at. I do applaud the British government to support targets, which are being set, but it's not just to do with cutting oil and gas production in the North Sea. I mean, what is the point in cutting oil and gas production when there's still a demand for it in the North Sea, when you've got to cart a big oil tanker all the way around the world to provide to meet the oil and gas requirements and the effect that that's got on carbon emissions. And I think it's not just the UK. It's just not just the UK and the Western world's responsibility to cut emissions. It's also got a lot to do with third world countries. Their emissions are absolutely horrendous, and we should be applying a lot of pressure on third world countries, whether it's reducing emissions from power production or deforestation. The rainforests are a massively valuable asset to the world in cutting carbon emissions, and I think there's a lot of work to be done there.
It's sometimes quite a delicate subject because obviously we've had the chance to move through that development, and now we're classed as a developing country, whereas they are saying, "Oh, well, you've done it. Why can't we?" So it's something I agree we need to be focused more on trying to educate them that we need to not cut out that part, but look at better ways to develop.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, Nathan. That's a very, very important point. I mean, it doesn't just stop with deforestation. If you look at the amount of methane gas that's produced by agriculture, now agriculture is considered as being a very, very green industry. Well, it is green, but it's still producing massive gas emissions. Now, I'm a believer of if something's broken, don't replace it, but fix it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think in that area there are options that are available to the agriculture industry in the medium to long term to cut emissions, and that doesn't just mean you know, getting rid of livestock. Biomass energy production, something else. So I think that the future is very positive in the environment, and it doesn't get me depressed. But we have to be able to have the knowledge and foresight to be able to do the right thing to take advantage of everything that's available to us.
Indeed. And you raised a very good point actually about the North Sea cutting the oil and gas completely. I think it was either an interview or a podcast that Elon Musk had done, and he was asked if he was able to remove all petrol cars or something to do with gas powered vehicles or whatever. If they could remove all of those cars, or if they could ban, it might have been if he could ban them tomorrow, would he? And he said flat out no. It was although it's good that he's obviously, and a lot of companies are producing more electric vehicles or those production methods that are more economically and environmentally sustainable. It's not a sustainable idea to cut things out straight away. There needs to be a gradual.
Yes.
There needs to be what?
I think it's a very sorry to cut. I mean,
No.
a very like chicken and egg situation, isn't it? It's who does it first? Is it the car company? Is it the government? Is it who is the person to make that first move to start the ball and make the changes?
It's getting the ball rolling, but if you take the floor from underneath the ball, then it breaks, doesn't it?
You could introduce all the electric cars right now, but if there's nowhere to charge your electric car or anything like that, it's, you know.
It will take time, but it's something that needs to be done, but can't be done
immediately. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to get into a topical conversation, discussion when you're speaking to two very clever marine scientists, because it always gets very intelligent. It's a bit different when you're speaking to the oil and gas community, because things are very technical and cut and dry. So great, I love it.
So sorry, that's me. I was getting a bit into that one then. So, Malcolm, you mentioned you touched on diving earlier, and we found out, so on Tuesday night we all stayed on a boat together, we had some pizza, we had some beers, and we started talking about Malcolm's career in commercial diving, and I find it personally very fascinating, and as Nathan and I are recreational divers ourselves, I know there's a lot of differences, but what would you say is the overriding difference, and would you recommend it? Would you, tell me all about it.
I'll try and keep it brief, because I tend to, as we find out on Wednesday night, I try to, after a few beers, trying to remember my younger days. I used to do a bit of recreational diving myself, and so I think that's quite an important aspect of being able to make the comparison. And I can safely say that the only thing that commercial and recreational diving have in common is diving physiology. In my day, if you were a commercial diver, you did it for one reason, and that was for the money. Certainly not for going down and looking at the environment in a scientific way. It was a dangerous job. In the 70s, there were a lot of fatalities. Thankfully, the mortality rate has dropped considerably nowadays, as safety standards have improved and training's also improved as well. I think my overriding, I've got a lot of memories, but I think the most important thing that I can keep from my days as a life support technician, now I must stress I wasn't a diver, I was a life support technician, was camaraderie. And in the industry it was very high and still is. Some of my ex-diving colleagues that I worked with offshore in the 80s are still some of my closest friends. And the friends that I quite happily trust my life with. So happy days, happy memories.
Excellent. Have you got any interesting stories from those camaraderies?
Well, yes, I do, but none that I could share with you in this podcast.
Fair enough. So something we're going to be doing during all the podcasts at the end is a few quick fun questions, and the first of which is the desert island style question. What 3 items would you take with you if you were stuck on a desert island?
Oh, I don't know, you've put me in the spot now. 3 things. Yeah, probably my iPhone. That probably wouldn't be allowed. And I would probably take my my multi-purpose penknife, perhaps. The
Very
third thing.
practical.
You know,
Yeah.
I need to think. I love cycling, and you know, there probably wouldn't be any place I could cycle on my desert island. But as long as I had my music, some form of communication, I could have an absolute ball
Yeah.
for a short period of time. I like my own company sometimes, just to contemplate and sit back and think in peace and quiet. So.
Nice. Has yours changed since the last one, Phoebe?
I can't remember what mine was last time. It's like cheese, my cat, and something else.
Something like that.
No, it's still the same. I might bring a bottle of wine this time.
That's a good shout. I think.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I'd probably still take some form of music, probably a mask and snorkel, thinking about it if it's a desert island, and then
Spear to catch some fish. Practical.
take a spear.
Mm.
I'd probably just take water because I can't survive.
not really
Everyone
old
can't
school
survive
then.
without water, but you know.
I went really old school. I mean, like, what's wrong with a fishing rod? I was like full on caveman, get the spear out. So our next one, if you were stranded in the water somewhere and there was one species that you wanted to see more than anything, and which one would you really not want to see?
Which one would I not want to see? Nothing like getting put on a spot here. How many more of these questions have you got?
Just
I did listen to the last podcast, so I don't know. One species I wouldn't like to see, probably boxfish jellyfish.
Good call.
Yeah,
Cool.
not nice. But I'm not a marine scientist like you eminent people, so I wouldn't be able to answer that with as much skill and expertise as you two guys.
And one that you would want to see?
Maybe a dolphin, I don't know. They've got kind of a peaceful kind of,
Yeah.
you know, quite friendly.
Yeah.
They can be...
They can be quite aggressive,
they can
can't
be,
they,
yeah.
dolphins?
Yeah, it can be
Uh-huh.
very intrusive of your personal space, I've heard.
I think there's the one species which everybody would obviously say in the middle of the ocean if they were swimming around was maybe sharks. I would be telling myself that all you experts in that area tell me that sharks are not so aggressive as it makes them out to be, so I wouldn't be too concerned. But I don't know if I was swimming around and I saw Finn coming for me, I would be convincing myself very well.
Yeah, they're friendly until they're presented otherwise.
Yeah.
And then obviously we work with a lot of technology, as you know. You've worked with a lot of technology in the past as well, but one thing that not a lot of people would think about is what's one item of tech you wish wasn't invented?
The mobile phone.
I
I know I said it's. I know it's a contradiction in what, but for different reasons.
Yes.
The mobile phone is an essential piece of everybody's itinerary nowadays, but I think it affects everybody in every walk of life. There are huge advantages in communication with mobile phones, in terms of being able to keep in touch with people. But social media can be very positive, but it can be very negative as well.
Agreed.
Whether it's with my grandchildren, finding ways to keep them off their phones at the age of 7 or 8. We have to accept the fact that mobile phones are with us from now till forevermore. But in every walk of life, it's a constant source of trouble in certain areas of social media, whether it's... You've got to be very careful how you use Facebook, and yeah, it's a big one.
I think
It's a
you're
big
right
one.
in saying that mobile phones are going to be with us for forever now, but I think there is, at the moment, well certainly from my opinion, there's a lot of people that were heavily invested in maybe social media and being on their phone all the time a few years ago, and it's slowly moving towards coming away from that a little bit. I think people are realising that it can be quite
so too.
detrimental.
Yeah. I've made a concerted effort to spend less time on the phone now. And even, I mean, last night I was at a concert, and it was great to see. Maybe a few years ago when I went to one, there'd be people just stood there with their phones.
Yeah.
There was practically no one with their phones up now, which is excellent, because that's how it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
It should be.
It's now gone full circle.
Yes, it was a bit of a novelty in those days. I mean, I despite my negative comments, I couldn't live without my mobile phone, and that's a terrible indictment. But I'm not the only one. Everybody's
Most
the same.
people
Oh,
can't
yeah.
anymore.
If I don't have my mobile phone beside me, I would kind of feel half dressed. You know? And it's, you know, I shock myself, but I'm no different from anybody else, and I'm not constantly on it all the time like some people are. But yes, you're right. There is a move away from mobile phone technology with my kids. I say kids. They're now all over 25, but you know, they're not constant. Everything's in perspective. It's the younger age groups that are the biggest concern, I think.
Yeah. For sure.
We should all go back to like the Nokia bricks that you could just get Snake on. That would be
that
would be lovely.
That's an interesting one now.
I had that for one summer a few years back when my phone broke, and it was liberating.
Well, thank you very much, Malcolm, for coming on and being our guest today. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Can't wait till you next come down and visit us from the Scottish branch, or maybe we'll come see you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Come out to you.
certainly will. I look forward to that as well, as I will look forward to coming down here again.
Excellent. Thanks, Malcolm.
Thank you.